they're comfortable with, they could still identify as religious. Do not identify yourself as a secularist or an irreligious Jew. Say, no, I believe in God. And obviously, I think that believing in God for sure is not enough. If someone, let's say, has a problem believing in God, but acknowledges that, you know what, the world would be a better place if more people kept God's law, I consider that person more religious than someone who has full faith in God and keeps nothing. Because then religiosity ends with that person and his little mental onanism. So I think that when someone grows into the situation, they start to realize, like, you know what, the world is crappy. Why is it that religious people do more good on this planet than people who espouse no ethical code, in this case, biblical ethical code? Clearly, we'd want more people to keep Torah, to live like there is a God than if there isn't. If you've come to that point in your life, then you could call yourself religious, even though you don't attend a synagogue, mosque, church, whatever. Many people feel, because of the fanatics out there, they see someone holier than thou, dressed in white, right? I guess on Yom Kippur in white and Kittel or something. And they're like, wow, if that's the standards of being a religious person, then I can't identify as religious. Not true at all. You could identify as a religious person. Again, if you're able to articulate where your values come from. If you have a moral compass that's still intact, saying, like, you know what, I know I keep going right when I should be going left. That itself, that level of shame, that you're confronted with your mortality and your weakness, that itself labels you as a religious person. Irreligious people do not think like this. So yeah, anyways. All right. So yeah, and the reason I say this is because in Judaism, I think Judaism probably does it more. Well, probably Islam does it just as much. When you bring in garb into the mix, right? You try to look a certain way to show how pious you happen to be. That's the only reason why they do it, by the way. If somebody wears a black hat and has a long beard in, I don't know, 100-degree weather, when there's no law to have a long beard, there's no law to have a long coat or wear a black hat, that means that person's religiosity is for show. And that's not even religiosity. It's that person wants you to respect them because of how they look, and not for any other ethically qualifiable sign, like actually doing good deeds that actually harm you, right? Financially, I guess, whatever. So people like this make the whole religion a bit condescending. No matter how good you think you are, your beard's never that long. Perhaps you don't speak with that specific accent. You don't have that prestigious last name. But this is what we're here to do on the show. We're here to slowly de-ethnicize the religion. De-ethnicize Judaism. I'm not saying de-ethnicize the Jewish people. De-ethnicize the religion. People say that Judaism is an ethno-religion. At its core, it is not. One could say that it's become that, unfortunately. But when people ask a question about Judaism, they want the actual answer, not what it's become. So no, Judaism is not an ethno-religion. And any form of ethnicity that has attached itself to Judaism has to be cut out. I'm not saying the Jewish people. There's an ethnic component to the Jewish people. But Judaism is only a religion. I was thinking about this the other day on what pity last names have the idea of Jewish last names has really hurt us in the long run than anything. I was watching the Trump trial, and you have Michael Cohen testifying and supposedly making things up. That's the accusation. But he has the last name Cohen. So you think, I mean, the idea is that if there's a Jewish person with the last name Cohen or with the name Katz, is because they're part of the Kahuna. They could trace their lineage back, or in faith, back to Aaron, which in some way demands respect without even knowing anything about the person. Last names were invented, I think, was it in the 1600s in Europe? Before that, either the 1500s or 1600s, near closer to Russia. Before that, people were just known, I mean, similar to how it was in Islam probably 60 years ago. They were known by the name of their father. But now, when you have the name Cohen attached to you, any other supposedly colloquially Jewish sounding name, whether it's I don't know, Lipschitz or all of the above, Mizrahi, Ashkenazi, and you don't keep Torah, what it does, it lets Gentiles assume that this is how religious people behave. This is why I think that it benefits everybody to get rid of their Jewish sounding name, even for the possibility of your children not remaining religious. By the way, I mean, there's an idea that every time you do tshuva, you should take a new name for yourself, which I think it's tied to this concept that now after you've come close to God, people shouldn't remember you for what you did in the past because you're stuck with the same last name. And it should also apply if somebody leaves the religion, they should take a different name. Now, they played around with the notions of last names in the Jewish world even before they were thrust upon people. In, again, I believe it's the 1700s. There were certain families like the Ibn Ezra, right? I mean, the Ibn Ezra is called Ibn Ezra not because his father was Ezra. It was a family line. I'm pretty sure the Ibn Timid family. In the non-Ashkenazi world, they fooled around with the idea of having almost notable yichus, like being able to tell people who you are without them actually knowing your family, which I think it cheapens the whole concept that everyone really should distinguish themselves by their actions and not rely on some sort of pedigree for special treatment. But anyways, what's up, Eliezer? So we're on YouTube and we're on Facebook. So yeah, that's something that crossed my mind, the idea of Jewish last names, because it's almost like something that's irremovable. When people, like Bernie Madoff, for example, people already knew, okay, Madoff sounds like an Ashkenazi Jewish name, must be Jewish, this and that. With the idea that being Jewish should be tied to anything other than Torah observance, and that people should be distinguished by their actions, is one major thing that harms us as Jews today and builds tons of resentment in the non-Jewish world. If you don't act Jewish, meaning if you don't keep Torah, please separate yourself from the title Jewish or from other religious people who do. We have this concept of a Jewish cemetery. It's sort of misunderstood nowadays that they think that in order to be buried in a Jewish cemetery, you just have to be halachically Jewish. Incorrect. According to halakha, the notion of a Jewish cemetery, it's only for people who are religiously Jewish. Only if they're religiously Jewish. So now they're like, they give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're religious or not. This is something new. This watered down the whole system. The idea that the righteous should not be buried alongside the wicked. That's the notion of a Jewish cemetery, not only because your last name is Gross or your last name is Klein. Mention that to your rabbi next time when they'll saying, oh, well, Judaism hasn't changed, right? Actual Judaism doesn't change, but the way people misrepresent it and chop it up and manipulate it in all different ways and still call it Judaism. Yes, Judaism has changed a lot, unfortunately. So Aphrodisia says, so can an agnostic be buried there also? For sure. The idea of a religious test of what one happens to believe never really comes up. It's what you do. If you're a decent person, and again, you're articulating why you're decent, and praying itself, even though someone's not in the mood to prayer, is still a commandment, according to halakha. If you go through all the motions and you're a decent person, then you're classified as a righteous person. Not like, oh, well, that person happens to come from a prestigious family, so we're going to allow him to be buried here. As a matter of fact, in the cemeteries of the 1800s, I remember I lived in Virginia once, and there's the Montefiore cemetery, a cemetery going all the way back. There's where Jewish soldiers of the Civil War were buried. And Even back then, although it was considered a Jewish cemetery, it was split up into sections. One section for the religious, because the religious did not want to be buried with the secular. There's a section, and if you go through cemeteries, old Jewish cemeteries in America, there was a section for Jewish communists called the Worker Circle in the Jewish cemetery. As a matter of fact, the practice in America was that almost every synagogue had their own cemetery plot, because the understanding was, because you couldn't be buried alongside the wicked, every synagogue, arguing with every other synagogue, felt that they were the right synagogue to be a part of, and they didn't want to be intermingled with everyone else. So when you became a member of that shul, it typically included a plot in their cemetery. Today, they make no such distinction. It's all put in together, mainly because of Cabala. Cabala said, no, that being Jewish is enough, but that's not what the actual halakha says, because they don't want to offend anybody. I'm just telling you what the actual law is. Next time they tell you, well, like, you're not Jewish, you can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery. And then you ask, like, why is your Karl Marx buried here? Because the average Jewish person today makes no distinction between Karl Marx and Rabbi Akiva. And that's part of the dumbing down of Judaism. Anyways, on that note, guys, like the show, follow the host. Let's see. Talmud is an evil dude. Okay, let's talk about the Talmud quickly. So, guys, the Talmud is not a divinely inspired book. The Talmud is made up of two sections, the Mishnah and the Gemara. The Gemara is a commentary to the Mishnah. The Mishnah contains the rulings of our court, what we call the Sanhedrin. And the teachers in the Gemara try to expound on what those laws may have meant, or decipher between ambiguous laws in the Mishnah. There are mistakes in the Mishnah. It's not divinely inspired. There's a whole book in the Gemara. It's called Masechet Torayot, that deals with the errors of the Sanhedrin. Meaning, if they could make errors back then, we for sure can make them today. The reason I have to make this clarification is because there's many rabbis, mainly in the Hasidic world, who will tell you that religious rabbis, tzaddikim, righteous men, don't make mistakes. I'm telling you, they've reworked Judaism all over. I would love to have a dialogue with these guys, but they won't. What they do is that they do. I mean, I just heard a recording somebody sent me of people saying that I steal money. That I steal money, that I like abuse the opposite sex, that I'm a con man, only because they don't want to debate me. Of course, if anyone ever says that about me, just ask them for proof. My life is an open book. If that was so, something would be online. Now, in terms of January 6th, yes, I was there. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm talking about stuff that sounds like unbecoming of me. People, I'm an open book. I've been doing this for long enough that if there's something for people to talk about, right, they would have said it already. It wouldn't all come from one rabbi who claims to know everything but has no sources. I'm a fake Jew, I'm a fake rabbi. Guys, titles mean nothing. Am I a rabbi? Yes, I have the piece of paper. I have 3 of them. But you should judge people on what they know. And it's not even what you claim to know, it's what you're able to defend. And my whole platform, from YouTube, Facebook, and now for over 20 years, is debating in a respectful manner. In other words, showing that I can defend what I believe. If you hear people who refuse to debate, that is kind of weird, right? Especially when all they do is defame. That's it. People don't have to call me rabbi, okay? But they can't insult me and not come on my show and have a respectful dialogue. And if you don't do it, it seems that there may be something that you're scared to lose, meaning your audience. That being said, if anybody knows a hater, you can share this live. All this is being recorded, and trust me, the haters are recording it also because they're just waiting for me to say something inaccurate to sort of butcher it, but it's fine. I don't claim to be the smartest rabbi in the world. That being said, I think that I could defend every one of my positions. and I have done so. Anyone who wants to hear these debates, go to my channel, TorahJudaism.org, under media and debates. Over 180 debates doing this for a very long time. And but I'll tell you where most of the hatred comes from. Most of the hatred comes from because I care about Gentiles. And I fight against the idea that has crept into the Jewish world that some people are superhuman and some people are not. Meaning there are people on this planet who are inherently inferior to others. I don't believe that. And because of that, I encourage people to become Jewish. I see no difference between a Jew and a Gentile other than Torah observance. That's it. Now, ask your rabbi that question. What's the difference between a Jew and a Gentile? And if he says anything other than the Jew keeps Torah and the Gentile doesn't, then you know he's a bigot. That's it. Because what fueled that form of thinking is not the Torah, but Cabala. The only difference between a Jewish person and a Gentile person is Torah. So if the Jewish person does not have Torah, in God's eyes, he or she is not Jewish. Now, according to Jewish law, what's their designation? Yes, they're legally Jewish according to Jewish law. It would be unbecoming of a good God to give people to be a respecter of names and titles and give people special treatment because of the blood running through his or her vein. Why doesn't anyone question this? When you hear rabbis on TikTok, there was a guy who got upset at me. He's like, oh, and he made this up, of course. He said, oh, well, you said I wasn't Jewish, right? And I'm like, first off, I don't call secular Jews not Jewish. I say that in God's eyes, you're not Jewish. According to Jewish law, you're Jewish, 100%. But I thought to myself afterwards, why would somebody who's not religious want to claim the title so badly? It's an important question. What's so great about the title Jewish when you don't believe in God? It's a title that does not exist if the avos, if our patriarchs didn't communicate and give up, so much for God in the Torah. If you see someone kicking and screaming just so you can call them Jewish when they don't keep Torah, means that being Jewish to them is more than observance and covenants and God. It's because to them, it's to be in some way superhuman. It's special to them, but it's not because of the Torah. It's because rabbis have been telling them for at least 700 years that what makes you special is not what you believe in or how you behave, but the soul within you, and that's what makes you Jewish. And this is Chabad 101, Tanya 101, Arizal 101, i.e. Kabbalah. And if any other group espoused a similar idea, they would properly be called bigoted. Ask them. If there's anything that separates a Jew from a Gentile other than Torah, then they're bigots. The notion, well, you have a Jewish soul, blah, 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 it's a bigoted idea. If you say that someone has a special soul, apart from what they believe in and how those beliefs guide their behavior, then you're a bigot. Because we are all the same. Inherently, we're all the same. We distinguish ourselves by our actions. Why is Israel important to God? Because Israel accepted the Torah. And when I say Israel, I don't mean everyone claiming to be an Israelite. Israel, in God's eyes, are people who accept it and keep the Torah, or make some attempt to at least acknowledge where their values come from. Not someone who merely has a Jewish mother. And this is part of the dumbification. When we try to clarify that dumbification, like, what does that even mean? Okay, so you're special, right? You're Jewish, but you don't believe in God. Oh, but I'm Jewish, but you don't believe in God. So you may be a Semite, but what does that have to do with peddling the idea that God considers you part of the chosen people when you don't articulate that what distinguishes you from everyone on this planet is only Torah observance? I mean, that's what God specifically says. He says, you will be my Am Segula, my treasured people, only if you keep my mitzvot only. I've already posed like 5 questions here for you to ask your rabbi. Ask them. Is it true what Asher Meza is saying? That what makes Jews special is only Torah observance. Unfortunately, you're going to be surprised that their answer is going to sound bigoted. No, there's more to that. We have a special soul. A Gentile can't ever even convert to become a Jew, because that's the Kabbalistic understanding, that if you convert, it's because you were Jewish all along, which only waters down the idea that Torah is life-changing enough to abandon everything to change it. The idea that the only reason you would want to chase Torah is because you were genetically disposed to come to Torah already, not because it made sense. These Kabbalists don't understand that they're hurting their religion when they spew this nonsense, because they typically don't dialogue with people who disagree with them much. And that's the difference between what I do and what they do. I constantly talk to people who disagree with what I teach, which helps me in some way make my position seem a little more sophisticated, a little more welcoming. Because the Kabbalists will be like, well, this is what we believe. This is what Judaism believes, meaning they'll utter a Kabbalistic idea, but before uttering it, they'll say Judaism teaches. They don't care about consequences, because being overly mystically inclined means never having to say you're sorry or take responsibility for the catastrophe that results from your teachings, from your actions, all of the above. So, if you walked around thinking, and I know many Christians have done this in the past, like, oh, look, a Goldberg over there, or a Cohen over there, a Jewish person. Remove that thinking from your mind. If that Jewish person is not observant, he's not Jewish in God's eyes. Again, he or she may be halachically Jewish. That means, halachically Jewish means legally Jewish. If they happen to be born in the land of Israel at a time when there was a Sanhedrin that could verify if their mother was of a Hebraic pedigree and also observant, then they would be liable for the civil law that every Israelite had to keep in the land of Israel. That's all it means. Fast forward 2,000 years, you have people stopping other Jews on the street asking you, are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? Not whether you keep Torah or you believe in God. No. What they're asking is that you have a Hebraic pedigree. And on that basis, they give you special treatment. Do you really think that's how God wants us to view the world? And if any other group did the same thing, wouldn't they properly be called bigoted? Guys, first we tell the truth, and then we give our opinion, even though it doesn't always make us look good. And on top of all that, we still promote Judaism. Anyways, all right, new topic. Coffee talk. What questions are you asking? I'm still looking for a question here. What do I think about Ben Shapiro? I think he's a good guy. I don't agree with everything the guy says. Clearly, that's a given. I don't know if people do that with me. They're like, oh, I like Asher Meza. I don't agree with everything he says. That's a given, guys. So Aphrodisias wants to know how much it costs to be buried in Jewish cemetery. If you don't got money, it doesn't cost anything typically. If you don't have money, it means there are some programs, but it's not so cheap. I had this idea about challenging the idea of mausoleums on what makes a mausoleum, because it's cheaper to be buried in a mausoleum than in the actual ground. But is the mausoleum in the ground if it's made out of concrete? That's the argument. But anyways, fine. Can you convert to Orthodox Judaism while in an interfaith marriage? Technically, yes, according to Jewish law, but no one will do it nowadays. Because just by living with a person who's not Jewish, you're violating many laws. But there is no law that says what is practiced today in the Jewish world when somebody comes to convert, that if you happen to be married and your spouse doesn't want to convert, that you can't convert. There's no law that says that. Let's see. He does Crocodile. Is it like a Russian drug or something? Let's see. Many rabbis don't allow conversions. Oh, that's actually not true. They may not do conversions. For example, Chabad doesn't do conversions. That doesn't mean they don't know. They don't endorse the idea. There's only one group today that doesn't endorse the idea of conversions. They're called Syrian Jews. He's literally the rabbi for Disneyland. There's a rabbi at Disneyland. Surprisingly, I lived in Orlando for a little while, but that's where Disney World is. But that being said, what's the largest Jewish organization in the region of Disney World, which would be like if people know Jewish areas in Florida, that would be like Sanctuary, Dr. Phillips area. It would be Chabad, by the way. Oh, California. Yeah, that's Disneyland. Yeah. What else? So, what did we cover? The idea of Jewish cemeteries. The way it's run today, it's a bit of a myth. The idea that just because you happen to have a Jewish mother, you're allowed to be buried in a Jewish cemetery. In the old days, people used to fight for who could be buried closest to the rabbi, because there was a hierarchy in the cemeteries. Not to mention that if someone was if unaffiliated or, let's say, wicked Jewish people would try to get buried in a religious or near religious cemetery, where they would build a mechitza around it, like an actual barrier. So this doesn't exist nowadays. Judaism has really been watered down. All this, everything I say, guys, trust but verify. There are sources for this 100%. It's difficult because there are so many Chabad shuls or reform. Yeah, and this is why I feel that God is in some way going to give the Jewish people a pass for many of them not wanting to become religious, because what's the alternative? You have reform or Chabad, right? There's really nothing in the middle. Yes, I agree with Gabriel. I don't think Candace Owens is an anti-Semite. All right. Miami or Naples? Miami Beach or Key Biscayne? What's your question? I'm in Hollywood, which is maybe 30 minutes from there, from at least Key Biscayne. Oh, hello, my friend Johnson. We were talking today at my friend Moshe's live about Shlug and Kaporis, on how many people don't ask a lot of questions in Judaism because people feel that whatever, just asking is a form of chastisement, whatever. But there's a certain prayer or a certain utterance after someone does what's called Shlug and Kaporis. So Shlug and Kaporis is when you swing the chicken over your head. There's a question on YouTube here, like about tattoos, before or after Yaakov. Anyways, the utterance that people say when they spin the chicken over their head, it in some way justifies what Christians have been teaching all along, by the way, that this chicken is going to die in my behalf. It's going to take its sins upon itself and be unalived in my behalf. And this is done, but I would say the vast majority of ultra-Orthodox Jews, they swing this chicken over their head, and they utter this thing. And for some reason, no one challenges rabbis and say, doesn't this resemble Christianity a lot? And if it does, why are you attacking Christianity? But anyways, Afro just wants to know who spins a chicken over their head. I mean, look it up online. It's called Shlug and Kaporis. What are your thoughts about conservative shuls? It's a mixed bag. Conservative Judaism, in terms of the tenets of conservative Judaism, don't differ from Orthodoxy in anything. I'm not saying from Orthodox shuls, When I say orthodoxy, I mean traditional observant Judaism. In terms of, there's no prohibition in halakha to have a woman rabbi, let's say. There's no prohibition in having, or like not having a mechitza, like a separation. It's a minhag, it's a custom that crept up. The only instance like of an actual mechitza in the Talmud is during Simchas Beis Shoeva, which is when they have the ceremony of the water. It said that they build an Ezras Nashim, like almost a platform for women, because it was so. Well, I don't even know. It said that they built a separation. I'm not sure if they even included women in that. But yes, conservative Jews are also supposed to keep Shabbos. Conservative Jews are supposed to eat kosher. The only discrepancy, is that I believe in 1956, the conservative movement said that if someone lives too far to walk to a synagogue on Shabbat, that they could drive to their closest synagogue and then come straight back home, whatever. That's the only thing that separates a conservative synagogue from an Orthodox synagogue in terms of law, actual law. Okay. So D says, Judaism doesn't proselytize, though. So if you're going to classify Judaism as what Jews happen to be doing, then you're right. But if you're going to classify Judaism as actually the do's and don'ts in Judaism, what appears in the Mishnah, what appears in the Torah, then there's no prohibition in proselytizing. It's actually, it seems like it's encouraged. There's many rabbis in the Talmud that did proselytize. However, it doesn't show many rabbis in the Talmud reaching out to born Jews because of DNA. Not that that's a bad idea also. I mean, I think we should reach out to everybody. But the idea that it's okay nowadays to encourage people with a Jewish background to return to Judaism, but it's in some way forbidden to encourage sincere Gentiles to keep searching and come closer to God and one day be serious enough to convert, that's what's absurd. Now, I think the reason why in the Talmud we don't see them reaching out to people just because of DNA is because people like this would be held with more suspicion. Like, why'd you leave? You know, while a Gentile doesn't know, he or she wants to know a little more about the religion. So absolutely, they're like a dry sponge seeking information. So this is why there's more examples in the Talmud for proselytizing Gentiles into the religion than ever. I can't even think of one. Maybe Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. Maybe the only time that you had a religious Jew telling a Jew who, and it wasn't because he had Jewish blood. It says that he admired him for being such a sportsman, and he said that if you're able to devote as much or even half of that effort in I don't know, being a gladiator or whatever Reish Lakish was into Torah, that you would be the biggest Torah scholar. And then he even bribed him by offering, I believe, his sister. But that is not the kiruv that's done nowadays, by the way. Quick question, Rabbi. How many Jews do you think have the same beliefs regarding halach and Kabbalah? So online, I could give you a handful, but there's a rabbi called Rabbi David Bar Chaim, extremely knowledgeable. You know, he's a giant. I'm a nobody. Rabbi Chaim Ovadia, I would say, also is another one. Rabbi Yonatan Alevi is another one. In Israel, it's more common. It's just for some reason there aren't that many TikTok, YouTube, Facebook rabbis, right? It's true. Most rabbis don't have social media. And I would say the more scholarly ones take this approach. This is the more like yeshivish approach. That, not that they're anti-Kabbalah, because I'm not anti-Kabbalah, by the way. I'm just for viewing it like midrashim. That's it. Kabbalah is essentially folklore and legend. It doesn't have to be burned. There's some beautiful ideas in it. The difference is when you begin to classify it on a super holy level. For example, the Zohar is called the Zohar HaKadosh. Like now, it's not just a book; it's divinely inspired, connected with God. You know, but you're supposed to utter it, even though you don't know what you're uttering. This happens every Shabbos, I mentioned earlier. That Sfardim have a custom to read the weekly parsha in the Zohar, because the Zohar was first created as a commentary to the Torah. The first Zohar was very small, by the way, and they kept on adding to it, and now it's huge. But they read the portions in the Zohar, even though they don't even understand Aramaic, just because it's become a mantra. But yeah, no, there are many rabbis who view halakha like this. I would say that the average rabbi who will come up here would acknowledge that this is the traditional way on how to understand what halakha is, and that is that halakha comes from the Sanhedrin. Halakha can only come from one place, from the Sanhedrin. Everything outside the Sanhedrin could be a minhag, like a custom a specific community took upon themselves, but it doesn't become binding on every Jewish person just because some Rebbe in Europe said something or some Amara said something. There's a lot about conversion. Okay. Yeah, like Judaism is not that hard to figure out. Judaism is only the 5 books of Moses and halakha. That's what makes you a kosher Jew. If you're able to memorize the 5 books of Moses and understand the do's and don'ts, we call Isser v'Heter, the halakha, the rulings of the Sanhedrin, then that's all you need to have mastered Judaism. Not even reading the prophets. And yes, there's a halakha that every week you're supposed to read a portion of the prophets, right? But even if you don't absorb anything from that, because there's nothing that a prophet could add new to our religion, right? The prophets are just there to bring you back to the Torah. You want to master Judaism? Get a Chumash, right? The 5 books of Moses, and Mishneh Torah of the Rambam. The reason I say Mishneh Torah of the Rambam is because the Rambam codified all of halakha, the rulings of the Sanhedrin, into 14 volumes. It's translated into English by our good friends at Chabad.org. If you would master Mishneh Torah of the Rambam, and you could read it in a year, if you do 3 chapters a day, small chapters, you would know more than 99% of the rabbis out there, including myself, because I haven't mastered Mishneh Torah either. Just because the Mishneh Torah is the only complete codification of Jewish law in the world, the only complete one. And it was put together by Maimonides. Now, there's other attempts to do this, to compile. There's a difference between a codification of Jewish law and a compilation of Jewish law. A codification are rabbis who either did the legwork themselves or had a Masorah to understand what's the final ruling in an ambiguous case, right? Or the final ruling amongst ambiguous rulings. A compiler of Jewish law is what we have in Shulchan Aruch. So Shulchan Aruch took the best out of the 3 and compiled it into one book, just so Ashkenazim and Sephardim could come to some common ground. On top of that, they built a commentary on it, an Ashkenazi commentary, and let me split it up even further. But yes, I would say that 98% of rabbis would come up and say that I'm not wrong. That's a nice way of saying, like, we just don't like what you do, but there's a source for it. All right, let's see. Where are all the haters at? Where are all the haters at? Let's talk to my friend Johnson here for a bit. Excuse me, guys. I'm a little under the weather.
Hey, Rabbi.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's going.
So I asked you that question with regards to how many people or how many Jews believe what you do worldwide. So do you think that it's and what I mean by that is that, for example, one thing that I think is interesting that you say is that a secular or an atheist Jewish soul is no different or maybe even worse than a Gentile soul.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't strike me as a yeshivish idea. In fact, for everything I've heard from yeshivish ideas is against that.
So anyone who teaches Judaism like I do will have an issue saying that a soul is superior, I mean, just because of blood. And all the names that I threw down, Rabbi David Rochaim, Rabbi Chaim Ovadia, Rabbi Yonatan Alevi, I guess Rabbi Michael Baron, before he became a Samaritan sympathizer, rationalist Jews would respond in such a manner. Kabbalistic Jews would have a problem because they've incorporated so much Kabbalistic literature. You don't understand how many books there are of Kabbalah. People get upset at the 27 books of the New Testament and they call it heretical. Can you imagine? The New Testament makes Kabbalistic literature. It's like the Boy Scouts compared to Kabbalistic literature, with very problematic ideas. So the problem is in Judaism, people don't like stepping on people's toes. So it's hard for someone, let's say from the organization Chabad, to ever come out against swinging chickens over your head on Yom Kippur, because it's the custom. This is what we do, and it seems that it's more important
just
to
sticking
be.
with the souls idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a Chabad view that is definitely the case, isn't
Yes.
it? I mean, the Lubavitcher Rebbe preached that, right?
Well, it's not that he preached it. All he did was push the ideology forward. I mean, his personal ideas didn't matter. The Bible of Chabad is called the Tanya, and the Lubavitch cannot differ with what happens in there or what appears in there. So it's online. I mean, just look up the first two chapters of it.
You're right that he can't differ from the Tanya, but he doesn't have to promote it. He doesn't have to be a Chabad rabbi if he didn't believe in it.
Oh, well, he's the Rebbe, right. So there's a weird misunderstanding that you're not allowed to leave the tradition of your parents. Now, if that was the case, there would never be Chabad, because Chabad is
exactly
somewhat of a new movement. But even would they believe that in order to change your nusach or your minhag, or like if you're Ashkenazi and you want to become Sephardi, that you have to go to 3 rabbis and they have to be what's called Mater Neder.
But that's a big leap. But you don't have to be the Lubavitcher Rebbe. If he didn't believe what he believed, he didn't have to be such a big Lubavitcher Rebbe. I mean, he didn't have to get to the level that he's at.
Well, he watered down a lot of what the Tanya said, by the way, because the Tanya never mentions the idea that Gentiles could be righteous by keeping 7 Noahide laws. It never said that every living thing has a spark of God. It basically separated the world between Jew and Gentile, and that's it. Well, Chabad is known for, like if you're lucky, they'll give you a pamphlet for the 7 Noahide laws, and they'll tell you how there's a universal message for the world, the 7 Noahide laws. So that position doesn't appear in the Tanya. Although I'm pretty sure he would have been aware of it, but if you're going to say such negative things about Gentiles, you would at least put in a clause like, I'm not talking about all Gentiles. All right. When it technically does, it means idolaters, but it doesn't make it. It doesn't distinguish between what a non-idolatrous Gentile looks like. And it says in the beginning, it's very easy to look this up. It's in the first 2 chapters of the Tanya. It's very short. You can read it in 20 minutes. It starts off by saying that all the good things Gentiles do on this planet, they do it all for selfish reasons. It says that it's like a het, like a chatas for them. That it takes a statement from the Talmud. The Arizal takes a statement of the Talmud, but even the commentators of the Talmud say that that's not necessarily what it means. That it acts like a chatas for them, like a sin sacrifice. All the good things they do. That it's like vanity. But this is at the crux of Kabbalistic Judaism, which is why I'm not a fan.
But don't you think it's problematic, some of the things that Schneerson and other people have said? And I don't mean it in problematic in an evil way, but problematic almost in a increasing the level of what he believed the Jewish soul or the Jewish people to be. Almost, I'm trying to find a quote that he said that I heard when I was studying this a couple of weeks ago about how Schneerson believed that the world was made for Jews or the Jewish soul.
Yeah, no, he didn't make this up, though. I mean, he's just peddling straight the teachings of the Arizal. I don't think People don't call him Schneerson, by the way. I mean, just because you say that, I mean, you're gonna knock them off. They'll say like the Lubavitcher Rebbe, right? Even though
whatever, Schneerson, whatever. I'm not Jewish. So
no, I get it. It's just because people won't know like who you're talking about. But I think that he actually watered it down a lot and made it like a little more universal, right? I don't think that the Balatanya would have went to Congress or to the United Nations and try to get people to like buy into keeping the 7 Noahide laws and this and that. But yeah, it didn't come from the mind of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Yeah.
When he says things like there are no secular Jews, all Jews are holy, it kind of does go against, what you're saying in terms of this is the yeshivish or the orthodox view when you have such, exalted rabbis like the Lubavitcher Rebbe saying this.
I would say
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's his belief, whatever. It just seems it's almost a different religion than the one that you're talking about.
At the end of the day, we all have to keep the same amount of commandments. The question is, this redefines why someone may choose to remain Jewish or even become religious if they have a Jewish parent.
Don't you see it as a different religion? Like for me, what you're talking about is a different religion from what the Lubavitcher Rebbe is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different faith. It's a different. What you're talking about, a Jewish soul and a Jewish belief, is very different from what he's talking about. I mean, he's saying that the world is made for Jews and that, Jews were ordained before, by God. So
yeah, but that's
God
not what unites us
made
as
this
Jews.
Playground for a chosen few select souls who are here on this earth.
What unites us as Jews is just plainly Torah observance. That's it. In terms of why you keep the Torah, this is why I don't have an issue with someone believing Jesus is the Messiah. Because how does that change you from keeping one Torah law? So
when you say Torah observance,
yeah,
it's a different Torah that says what you're saying versus what he's saying.
No, I mean commandments, like the do's and don'ts. In terms of philosophy, look, in Judaism, you have the right to be stupid, okay? You have the right to be an idiot. However, only because you're stupid and an idiot doesn't mean that you should be labeled a heretic or an idolater, which is exactly what's done nowadays. What solidifies you as a Jew is Torah observance.
But you can't just make up new ideas or have very different ideas and then say it's the same religion. I mean, this is so different. I mean, the nature of a soul and the nature of why
so
we
it depends
exist,
how you define religion. That's the thing.
Religion.
Colloquially, yes, the way you define religion colloquially, that the religious tenets of Judaism, yes. But in terms of the core of Judaism, Torah observance, then yes. I mean, or that no. I mean, from that perspective, you can believe everything the Rebbe believed about Judaism and still be a kosher Jew and be, part of my family, because we're united by Torah observance. The Torah doesn't even mention the Messiah. But the reason I mention this is because many people believe the Rebbe was Mashiach. It just doesn't mention it. So it's an extracurricular.
Okay, that's slightly different because that's, believing in. Let's say there were two Rabbi Ashers. One believed in a Messiah and one didn't, but everything else was the same. I wouldn't say that that's two different religions. That's, eschatology. These things differ sometimes. But believing that the idea of a Jewish soul is eternal, in that the world was made for Jews and not all Jews are holy. For me, that's very different.
Another way of putting it is that you can technically be a racist and still be a kosher Jew.
That's fine. You can be a racist Muslim and still be a Muslim.
Right. I think that's what we're trying to separate here. I mean, how do we split hairs here? What makes it not part of my religion? Of course.
Well, for example, when you have a very fundamentally different view of God or of the nature of this world.
No, I mean, still. If someone believed that God had a foot or God had a hand, right, which would definitely go against what Maimonides teaches, I would still consider that person fully my brother in Torah. Like if they kept the Torah and, we don't, philosophy is
that's
not.
Fine. And I would say that same person would also be, a Muslim with or without that belief. But if that person believed that there was such a thing as a Muslim soul and this world was created for Muslims, I would say that person is a heretic and no longer a Muslim.
Like, I don't do that because that's what they do to us. Understand? They write us off for non-Torah or halachic reasons, so we can't do that to them.
Torah and a halachic reason, because you're changing the nature of what God is.
But the truth is, we don't know anything other. We don't know anything about God other than He's just, He's righteous, and He's a lawgiver. Right? That's all we know.
Do you think that it's just that God created this world for a very select few number of souls, a very small minority, and that said this world is for them?
Well, if I can join the discussion,
not because of their belief or actions, but because of how they are born. I.e., like Schneerson said, there's no such thing as a secular Jew. All Jews are holy.
Right. Yeah, David, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the guy has a point. By the way, nice to meet you. I'm sorry for calling you the guy. It's not polite. I don't like it, but I don't know your name. So
No worries. Nice to meet you.
Okay. So yeah, you definitely got a point. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. A lot of Jews agree with you with the fact that that can be racist and everything that we want to say about it, but it's like nationality. Okay, for example, you sound to me like British. You could be also Australian. I don't know. I'm just making an example. Okay, for example, we are in Britain. Okay, we both have citizenship there, and that doesn't mean that we must do everything in the same way exactly, even though we are on the same. Like how can I say, we from a law perspective, from a rules perspective, we obey to the same rules. We follow the same guidelines. You know what I mean? We all drive on the right side in the case of Britain. You know what I mean? So basically,
I know what you mean. I have absolutely no problem with Judaism being racist or not racist. I think that there's no problem with that. I think that's fine. Every group has an in-group bias, an in-group preference. I think that's completely fine. But to say that somebody who was born in our group, is always in our group, no matter what his beliefs or his actions are, and that for example, the most evil man in the world, if he was happened to have a Jewish mother, he would still be holy, and that this planet was made for him. For me, that is
okay. And also for many Jews,
I don't
it's
care
insane.
about the racist aspect of it; it's the extremism aspect of it.
Yeah, but okay. Like every religion, we are not here to talk about the thing that Judaism is perfect and we don't have crazy people in among us or stuff like that. It's not true. It would be hypocrite to say something like that.
I'm calling the rabbi crazy or an extremist or a bad person. I'm questioning.
No, I got your point. I got that's not about everyone, but I want to be sure that you understand that not all of the Jews think that way. Okay.
Well, most
no, of course. No, I'm not accusing everybody of believing that way. The rabbi, for example, doesn't believe
guys,
that way.
I'm just trying not to do the same thing to them that they do to us. And some people will be like, you should do the same thing to them. Yes, they know how it feels. It doesn't work like that. There's according to Jewish law, there are consequences for calling somebody a heretic. We don't extend the lives of heretics, right? They're almost unalive. Same thing with idolaters. That means he can be an idiot. Like, according to Jewish law, like nowadays we could put people in cherem, meaning we could excommunicate people. The reason many people don't do it is because if they would start doing it, everyone would start putting each other in cherem, like excommunicating here, left and right. So it's better to just unite on the core of our religion, which is Torah observance, and basically say everyone should at least play nice. That means the racist.
Let me give you maybe the background, the rationale of what I'm saying. In Islam, there have always been a group called the Khawarij, the ones who outside everybody else, who are very quick to label people non-Muslims. And in their view, this group was a very early Muslim group that sprung up after the Prophet died. And they believed that if you committed one major sin, then there was no way back for you. So, for example, if you committed adultery, you were outside the fold of Islam and there was no way back. And the Prophet warned about this group arising and told us to always be wary of these people who had very hard hearts and who would judge other human beings more harshly than God himself would judge. And so we're always very wary of them. which is the reason, and that's why, for example, the ISIS group are exactly the same. They killed more Muslims than anybody else, or unalived more Muslims than anybody else, because they believed the reason that global Islam was in such a dire strait is because so many Muslims were not, had committed too many sins and what have you, and that's why they wanted to, that's why they would never attack Israel, for example, and why they killed so many Muslims. So we're always wary of these groups that seem to go one way or the other in the extremist path in terms of, either Muslims are always Muslims no matter what, and Muslim soul is holy. That's strictly forbidden in Islam. And then the opposite is also true. If you committed a sin, or you're outside, or you're excommunicated. Mm-hmm. So I have some sensitivity to that. That's the background of what I'm saying.
So in Judaism, we hope for the day to have a ruling body in our midst. Meaning, without a Sanhedrin, Judaism really cannot really fix such problems. If there was a court that would tell these people, excommunicate them, or like something, make some sort of clause in their existence, then I mean, Judaism could at least seem more ethical. Till then, we have to tolerate people who are Torah observant. That says, I mean, Nachmanides makes a statement that someone could keep all of Torah and still be like a crappy person, and it's true, and we know them. So, yeah. Anyways, it's a shame.
There was a debate, just a slightly different point. There was a debate that I watched a few weeks ago between a Muslim and a Jew. And one of the things that, it was actually a very boring debate, but one of the things that really struck me is that the Jew said that if you didn't believe in God and you were still following all the rest of the 612, you were still a good Jew, but you weren't perfect. So for me, that is all, my head was blown by that. That's why he was saying, we can have secular Jews because as long as they keep, most of the mitzvahs, the rest they can be working on.
Oh, well, that's a little silly. That's a little very giving them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, if someone can articulate where their values come from, if a Muslim says, I'm Muslim because my parents are Muslim and not because my values come from the Quran and the Hadith, then they're not Muslim.
Correct. So
with this idea of being Jewish by circumstance or coincidence, like clearly a broken clock is right twice a day. Someone does something good, so yeah. No, the question is, what does the Talmud have to say? Not that the Talmud from this perspective philosophically has, so much weight, but it tells us what the rabbis thought about things back then when it was close to a time when they had the Sanhedrin. And back then, an unaffiliated Jew was treated like a Gentile. That's it. It was one, they wouldn't be tolerated in the land of Israel because...
But it brings up a really good point, which is belief in God one of the 613 mitzvot? Yes.
So incorrectly...
Are they all equal?
So incorrectly, yes. Incorrectly. Meaning... there's no commandment in the Torah to believe in God. It says the way my mom
God exists, right?
Well, to know God.
Yeah.
That's how the Rambam brings it down, but it's not a commandment. It's the first part of the 10 statements, right? I mean, the 10 commandments in Hebrew are not called 10 commandments. They're called the Aseret HaDibrot. So they're 10 statements. So the first statement is not even a commandment. So they'll say, because I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, i.e., right? The clause, believe in me. But there's no actual command to believe in God. The question
What's the first commandment? What's the first one? Isn't it, don't worship any other gods except me? So
no, that's how the Christians break it down. It's a statement. Oh, in terms of like don't. Okay, no, it says like don't worship other gods, but it doesn't say that you have a commandment to worship God in that statement. I don't think it does.
I thought it said, don't worship other gods except me. So there was a clause in there which says...
No, it says, have no other mighty ones, powers, or gods against me.
Right. Yeah, so don't have other gods, but not necessarily that you have to even believe in God. So there's a famous rabbi...
Are you sure? Do you think you could read it out? Because that's an important one.
Have no other gods against me, or at my face.
Yeah.
To his...
If we can read it in Hebrew, then we can get to the...
Yeah.
No, but she's quoting right, because the word that it used in Hebrew is like af. Af, it's nose, but in this case is idiomatic for like when you are mad at someone, when you are against someone. Okay. So the translation in this case, it's good enough.
There's a rabbi called the Radbaz that he wrote a letter saying that a Jew doesn't have to believe in anything. That no, it's true. Like other than to keep Torah commandments. There's three major opinions on what a Jew must believe in Judaism. The most famous is by Maimonides, who brings down the 13 principles of faith. There's another one, Rabbi Yosef Albo, who wrote a book called Sefer HaIkarim, who said that a Jew only has to believe in three things. Is it like prophecy, something like that. And then there's this tshuva, this letter, this response by the Rambam, who says that a Jew doesn't have to believe in anything. Why? Because the Torah doesn't have a test on belief. The way you show what you believe in Judaism is by what you do. That means it would almost be unbecoming of a good God for him to adjudicate you for what you happen to be convinced or not convinced of.
Yeah, that's exactly this point, Rabbi, is the main difference between Islam and Judaism. It's actually the biggest difference. Mm-hmm. The Prophet said that the reason that Islam came and the reason that the Jew, because if you read the Quran, and I know you've told me you haven't, the Bani Israel, the children of Israel, are differentiated from Jews, the sons of Judah, and it says that it's a case study. The Jews are a case study for Muslims in the Quran, and it's why the Jews went astray, why God had to send so many prophets, and it's one of the main reasons is that their hearts were hard, i.e. they judged by the letter of the law instead of the spirit of the law, and they lived by the letter of the law instead of the spirit of the law. I.e. they followed the rules not because the rules were there to help and to guide, but they saw the rules almost as gods, almost as we have to follow this to the T. And
well, it's like this in the prophets. It mentions in the prophets that it's interesting. It tells us why God was upset with the Jewish people before he exiled them. And it was because they were forgetting about essentially what Christians call the spirit of the law, saying the more ethical, that all this should boil down on doing goodness to others, right? But it never mentions belief, though. It never says because you weren't convinced.
That's the point of the spirit of the law, isn't it?
No. The point of the spirit of the law means the essence on why we do it. For example, you may have a ceremonial act that in some way translates into an ethical message, right? But if you overlook that message, what?
You're commanded to love the Lord your God. You can't love something you don't believe in or exists.
So if you don't believe in God in Islam, you are not a Muslim. Doesn't matter how good of a person you are. You can be a good person and non-Muslim.
So I don't think the Torah defines exactly what love is from that perspective. But being that the court is what adjudicates you and kicks you out of the Jewish people, how can they validate such a love?
Because there's a law to ensure that there's peace on earth and things move smoothly. So there's an Islamic court or a Sanhedrin. Mm-hmm. But then there is the hereafter where you're judged by God of your actions. So that's why in Islam, for example, if you commit a crime in public, it's very different than if you commit a crime of adultery, for example, in private. In private, there is no punishment for it. In public, there is a severe punishment for it.
So then it boils down to ultimately only God could validate faith or not. So there's no point in even mentioning it.
That's what I'm saying. Only God can validate faith, of course. It can't be validated here unless you declare it otherwise.
Yeah, no, right. No, I mean, it's not true because someone could just say and lie, because they want to date a girl or they don't want to be unalived by a certain radical group. In other words,
and that's why in Islam, declaring that you have non-faith, even though you don't believe it, is the same as not believing it. It's a grave sin.
Yeah. So that form of lip service, doesn't exist in Judaism. Like people don't ask you, okay, like you believe in God, then declare it so. Like who cares? People can lie. It means nothing, right? You show what you believe in by your actions.
Yeah, but would you lie if it's life or death? Like if you could lose, how's it going, guys? By the way, would you lie if it's like your life depends on it?
Would I lie?
The prophet Isaiah talks about this too, actually, though. You honor me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me.
No, correct. Yeah. No, only God can make such a judgment.
No, I got that, but I think what he's saying is like, you can lie, but that your life depends on that, like in an Islamic understanding.
No, I know. Yeah. I'm just saying that itself seems a little primitive because everyone would just lie and tell people what they want to hear. However,
but the point isn't about the earth. This is another big difference. Muslims don't live for this world, they live for the next world. And so you're always worried about what you're going to be judged on in the next world, not in this world, because this world is almost meaningless, because for the same reasons you said, it's a primitive world where you can pay lip service and get through by lying. And so, you know, if there's no next world or there's no God to judge you on your actions, really, you know, it's very difficult to
right. So we shouldn't contribute to that line of thinking at all.
Self-dictate or self-regulate.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't contribute to that line of thinking by saying that it's not a primitive idea. In other words, like, we should say that creeds mean nothing. It's what you do. Because a creed just means, like, give me the secret password. All right.
Yeah, but how do you ensure?
Well, that's what you're saying. Just commit a set of actions for whatever purpose, and you're a good Jew.
Right.
In Islam, if you give charity for the sake of God, and let's say you have two people, one person doesn't believe in God but gives charity, and another person, Muslim, gives charity because God commanded charity. Right. The person who gives charity because of his belief in God is higher praised, is seen as a better person.
Yeah, but that's only in God's eyes, but not in Islamic society. I mean, a judge won't be able to tell.
Of course. It doesn't matter. I don't care what another human thinks about me. I know that you're so focused on that, but you have to understand.
I'm not focused on that. I'm talking about what God thinks of me.
John said Asher.
No, he's talking about me. Yeah, no. Well, the reason I'm focused on it is because that was the beginning of the conversation on why don't I throw the Chabadniks under the bus as heretics when what they teach makes us all look racist. Okay, the reason
I'm not asking you to throw them under. What I'm saying is you should.
He was making, a big thing. It's not literal.
You don't have to judge them. Maybe their beliefs are better than yours. I don't know. What I'm saying is, how can you believe that they are the same faith? It's a different faith.
Yeah, because what makes them part of my faith is Torah observance. This is why, like, I won't do what they do to me. By the way, right? I consider a Lubavitcher who keeps the commandments how he's supposed to, as a kosher Jew, as I would, like, only because they're sick philosophically, they're still kosher Jews. Kosher meaning that they're acceptable, and I shouldn't say they're not Jewish and that. Even though I'll call out their ideas because yes, we end up paying for what they spew. But yeah, what are we gonna do?
I don't know, Rabbi. Your son's going to end up thinking all of these things. You're sending him to a Chabad school.
It's my ex-wife who's putting him in that school.
How much of a good idea that is.
It's my ex-wife. It's not me. It's not me.
Although a lot of the secular Jews like the Chabad. All my secular Jewish friends,
of course they do.
Atheists, they love the Chabad.
Of course, because Chabadniks make them feel like they're
loved, they are special, they are good guys.
It's true.
That's the point. Okay. You gotta understand this about Jewish people, secular Jewish people. Okay, imagine that you are a secular, I don't know if you're a Muslim, whatever. Okay, so you will like to be more close to Orthodox people, let's say, or more practicing Jews, but you are scared because of all, how can I say, the appearance of the things, all the procedures and stuff like that. So one comes to you and he says, no, but you're okay, you're fine, and he broke the ice and he starts even telling you, no, you are a good guy, and he's nice with you, and he actually does something like actively to make you feel that you are loved, that you're important, he gives you help, whatever. So they are buying people, let's put it this way, with this philosophy of, you are special. Okay.
Right. Which at its core, it's not bad if they did it equally. It would be such a beautiful thing. But because they separate who they're kind to and give this nice treatment to, that's what makes them crappy. One little thing, like could change the flavor of the whole pot. But anyways, that's the issue. It's not, of course, people.
I don't think it's crappy, actually. I mean, it's their belief, and that's what they think, and they want to bring people who are within their community back. I understand why they're doing it. It's odd to have a religious belief behind it as opposed to a community belief behind it.
So why do you feel it's crappy if you're limiting it to DNA?
Because I understand why they're limited.
No, I understand racism also, by the way.
If you've got limited resources, you want to bring the people from your tribe back, from your family back. It's a kinship thing.
Oh, yeah, okay. But if by tribe and family, you mean religion, and you like sprinkle it with spirituality, then you automatically gave birth to an Ubermensch. to a superhuman. You understand? I mean, it's not like my cousin or, you know, I have a responsibility, you know, like to my brother, let's say. But what does an Orthodox...
That's how they view things, right? They view other Jews as their brothers.
Correct, but because of the soul. What does...
Well, that's what I'm saying.
A Hasidic Jew...
because of the soul. If they believed it because, you know, we have shared cousins or, you know, long lost, you know, we share a history and we share a community, then I can understand it.
You know, survival of the species, I get. Your survival physically, like of people who look like you because, you know, like they're of your clan, I understand, but they're doing this in the name of God, and that's what makes it bigoted, because now...
I agree.
You could be a...
Asher, I have a question, Asher. So have you ever attended a Chabad synagogue before, like for services?
Every other week.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, my son goes to the Chabad school. So the reason I go to Chabad every other week is because I get my son every other week and he's there with his friends. I like Chabad, by the way. Okay. Well, the reason this came up is because I'm defending Chabad. Like Johnson. You know, so Johnson is saying that although I call out Chabad for a lot of the things they do, I should call them like heretics and like not of my same faith.
No, don't miscategorize me. I didn't say call them heretics or be mean to them. I'm just saying you shouldn't, in my view, because it's a different faith.
Yeah.
It's not our faith. It's just different.
Yes, our faith is only tied to practice, not belief. You know, that's not how it's. People don't extend that courtesy to me, by the way, right? That we could keep all the same commands, but if I say I believe in proselytizing, or I say that, you know, maybe the Zohar is a forgery, but they'll say, well, you're not even Jewish, right? So, like, I don't want to fall into that hole, you know. And the same guys will just lie and start saying a bunch of other things about me, which are clearly not true. But anyways, whatever.
So the way the rabbis do it is by not acknowledging people. Is that the way how they turn people away, by not acknowledging people who come into the shul? Regular, like newcomers, is that what they do?
What do you mean?
Like whenever there's a new, like I go to Chabad sometimes, and when I go there, there's always like new people, and then they come in for like a week or two, and then they leave. You don't see them again.
Are they Jewish?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Oh, that's probably where. No, if they were Jewish, no, Chabad does take care of people with a Hebraic pedigree. They give you special treatment. I mean, that's your specialty. So they're welcoming. I mean, they're welcoming. They give special treatment to people who are born Jewish. But they're not going to tell you don't come because you're not Jewish. Right? I mean,
yeah. But I don't see them like acknowledging people that come in there. Like you'll see a black family going in there, and then like the rabbis don't say hi to them.
All right, I don't know about that. I don't. There's two faces like of Chabad. There's. I don't know, like if they wouldn't acknowledge them, they may ask me if they're Jewish or not. But it's not that they're going to mistreat you, because, you know, I don't know if they mistreat more than just over embellish the idea like of Jews being special. But I don't think they're actively going to, like, you know.
Do you think they do it because of what's in Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel? When I was reading that, I was thinking maybe that's the reason.
Religious Jews nowadays don't do anything because the Bible says to do it. I mean, it has to be reiterated somewhere, unless it's in the Torah itself. You know, they'll quote the Torah and verses from the Torah, but
I'm sure the Chabad know the book of Ezekiel, and you don't think so?
No, no, they don't. I mean, for sure Ezekiel, because Ezekiel is one of the books that are very not represented much in the reading of the prophets. So no, the average Jew doesn't even study the books of the prophets. Unfortunately, it's just not.
What are they doing in the yeshiva schools like 12 hours a day then?
For sure, not studying the prophets. No, they're studying every other book.
Just the
Talmud.
Yeah, the Talmud mainly.
Prayers.
Here.
They study the Talmud and not the book of the prophets.
Correct. Right. No, I mean for fun. I mean they may.
Is that what you did? You didn't study the Tanakh. You just studied the Talmud.
Oh, I mean I knew the Bible before I went to yeshiva. But people don't study the Bible in yeshiva unless it's like like a Parsha Shavua class. If you're studying the weekly Torah portion, they do it, but it's not like they're trying to decipher what the Bible. No, it doesn't.
What are they doing there for like 12 hours a day for like
Jewish
They're
law?
studying commentary.
Yeah, Jewish
commentary and the traditions and the prayers and things like that.
Don't you need to read the text before you read the commentary?
Yeah. Wait a sec, guys. Calm down. Wait a sec. Talmud means studying, and when you say Talmud, you are saying a bunch of things. When you study Talmud, you are actually studying how to put in practice all the commandments. And so, while you study Talmud, you quote all the time Tanakh. It doesn't mean, okay, at all that they do study actively the Tanakh, okay?
That's not the same thing. That's not the same thing as reading the narrative, reading the context around a passage, quoting a passage, and then quoting Gemara says, and then quoting what
it's not the priority for a rabbi to know all the prophets, at least for someone who needs to know the Jewish law. It's not the priority, because if you know what Isaiah Yeshayahu said,
that's not what he's asking, though. He's asking why don't they read it? I'm giving him the answer.
That's a good question. That's a good question. Okay, it used to be back then. Am I right, Rashir?
Yes, it used to be.
Historically speaking, in yeshivot.
I'll tell you. So in yeshiva, people don't study the Talmud to know Jewish law. Okay? People study the Talmud as an exercise. Right. They study it like a sport. Because no matter what conclusion you may come to by reading the Talmud, at the end of the day, you have to do what Shulchan Aruch tells you to do. Like, or then you're considered a heretic. So they study like a sport. They'll just read it. They'll argue for the sake of arguing. They're not studying for the sake of learning. This is quite factual, unfortunately. Yeah, that's.
How is this encouraged? I'm so surprised.
Why?
It's because Judaism is set in stone for the most part. Like.
Yeah. Is it?
Yes.
You have the Zohar that's very new.
No. That's
Tanya is very new.
That's not the same thing as studying Jewish law. Like Jewish law and the authority of the rabbis, even though there's really no true authority, but the fact of the matter is in Judaism, it's kind of set. Like the way that we do things is the way that we do things. And the text that is received is the text that God wanted us to receive. So it's no point in really
Talmud study nowadays.
That's fine. That's the same as Islam, but arguing is a sport, and and for the sake of it, that's for me.
The reason why they do that is because if you read Jewish commentary, you have a rabbi commenting on a passage, and then another rabbi commenting on what they said, and then he said, and then you have to go to the Breitza, and then you have to figure out why it was said this way, and then they're looking at the law that is pulled from Gezerah Shavah, and then there's the reason why they do the arguing back and forth is because it's kind of the tradition.
Yeah, but they don't do that today, by the way. They don't do like everything that you describe is not done nowadays. That's only in Talmudic times. So nowadays,
that's what I'm commenting on.
What?
That's what I'm commenting on.
Oh, like in Talmudic days.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, sorry.
With the quotations and why they're arguing, and so the.
What about now? Why are they arguing now?
There's no reason. There's no basis for Torah study the way it's done today. No basis. They're trying to, in some way, emulate.
How can you say that, Rabbi? I mean, for me, this is like.
No, I'm going to explain why.
As a Muslim, I mean, this is like mind blowing for me because you're saying that people are essentially, carrying out their faith or Judaism incorrectly or with no basis.
Okay, I'll tell you why. They're trying to emulate what they pick up from what they read in the Talmud. They see the academies in the Talmud on how they would learn. They're trying to recreate that, but it doesn't apply nowadays because we don't have the authority to change anything or modify anything. They weren't studying back then for the sake of studying. They were studying for the sake of developing new laws. Now we study for the sake of studying. It makes absolutely no sense. This is why Maimonides stepped in his introduction to Mishnah Torah. He says, now that I have codified all of Jewish law for you, you don't have to study Talmud anymore. Because the reason people studied back then was in order to decipher what to do and what not to do. Today, like I said, learning in Judaism has become a sport. It's just you could study Talmud day in and day out and never be allowed to say, I'm doing one thing different in my Jewish life, even though that practice appears nowhere in the Talmud. There's many practices we do nowadays.
Appears you write a better book than the Mishnah Torah by Maimonides?
What? I'm saying again? What?
Couldn't you study enough so that you could become the next or better Maimonides, the next Rambam?
What do you mean? I mean, the laws don't change. I mean, the Rambam didn't really make things up. He just brought down laws.
Well, he codified it. He interpreted it, right?
Could you be a better codifier? In other
More
words,
than interpretation, it's like actually synthesis, like putting straight, this is the conclusion. Okay, after all we have said, after all you have in the Talmud, the discussion how to put in practice, for example, the Shabbat. Okay, this is the conclusion. During Shabbat, if you go into Talmud passage X and Y, you are going to find that you got to do these, and these, and that, with all the quotations, even in the Torah and the Tanakh. Okay, so basically it's like that.
Try to codify it, and they all don't agree, right? Is my
No,
understanding.
no. There's probably maybe 4 or 5 major codifiers of Jewish law, and then there's compilations of Jewish law which tries
Do they
to
all
like.
agree, the codifiers?
I'm sorry.
Do they all agree?
No. This is where you have compilations of Jewish law that will take like the best out of 3, right? Like if 3 agree on 1, and 2 don't, they'll take the 3 to in some way purify it to come, because the disagreement are unambiguous rulings.
And that's how you're going to get like Shulchan Aruch, because you're going to get some the Rambam, but then you're getting opinions of others as well. So it's just a modern version.
It's not a science, unfortunately, but what's done today in the Jewish world could completely be halted, and Judaism not suffer in a bit in terms of Torah learning. If you would close down every yeshiva, the academia would not suffer in the Jewish world, because Jews have the books at home. This is all done for show. And communities, the way they distinguish small communities.
Why did you do it, Rabbi?
Because I was a convert and I didn't know anything. I mean, I'll tell you, I converted to Judaism. And one of the first things I did was move to Israel to learn in yeshiva, because I didn't know anything. Right? I mean, it took me almost 3 years to convert. And then I realized that in yeshiva, I also didn't really learn anything. The bulk of my learning was by self-study, because in yeshiva, you can't really question. There's a lie that Jewish learning revolves around asking questions. It's not true. You may ask the question, but if you're not happy with the answer, then they'll kick you out of the yeshiva. So you're basically just asking for can you repeat the statement? Now,
you're not painting the best picture, right?
Well, I mean, it's the truth. I mean, everyone who learned the yeshiva would agree with me, okay? Now, in Talmudic times, it's different, because you asking the right question could actually change the halakha for the whole nation. So now, like almost everything that exists in Judaism, it's like a weird black and white copy of what actually existed when there was a Sanhedrin and like real academies in Israel. But now it's all for show. The way they distinguish a serious Jewish community from a non-serious Jewish community is whether they have a yeshiva and a kollel and a seminary for girls and all that stuff. But it's all for show. There's no real job for a rabbi nowadays. If the job of the rabbi is to tell you what you're able to do and what you're not able to do in Jewish law, all that has already been codified. This is why Maimonides specifically writes, now that he has codified all of Jewish law, you don't have to study Talmud anymore. The Rambam wrote this.
He said that?
Yes. It's in his introduction.
And it was a big problem at that time, by the way.
Yeah. Because it left a lot of rabbis looking for jobs by people who took Maimonides serious. It is true. The reason they had scholars back then, because they didn't have the title rabbi in the time of Maimonides, was because in order to understand the Talmud and understand the do's and don'ts, you needed someone who was fluent in Hebrew and in Aramaic and knew all the other laws to be able to come to a conclusion and tell you, you can't do this and you could do this. Maimonides.
So how does somebody, if that's the case, and I'm sure it is, how does somebody like for example, an up and coming, rabbi that is exalted above all the others? I'm thinking of someone like the Shlomo Yehuda guy, the young guy in Israel
right,
now, who's, a lot of people are thinking that he's a Messiah and all of this stuff. How does he differentiate himself if we don't need rabbis?
Having a photographic memory or something trivial to that extent. That's it. And being an image for the Jewish people. Well, the reason he's called the Yenuka, it's because it's Aramaic for like the genius child. They admire things that have the what? I'm sorry?
The protege in English, maybe. Right?
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with I mean, someone uncovering something new or deciphering something that's old, right? It's just brain power. Like if you're able, on how many portions of the Gemara can you memorize? But it's not like acts of charity, granted, but the Lubavitcher Rebbe did a lot.
They say he's like been healing people and he's
No, it's just having a photographic memory.
I read
That's
that he
it.
performed 5 miracles.
Well, about you and I, they don't tell such stories. It's about having a photographic memory. It's what grades you get and how many of the older rabbis can you impress. That's it. That's what gets you labeled, like a tzaddik or a gadol, unfortunately.
I mean, I'm just going to say he wasn't in the temple confounding the rabbis at age 12 like my rabbi was.
All right. You have to throw that in there. Age 12.
Okay, yeah. כבוד הרב, יש לי שאלה. I have a question. Yeah, really interesting question, by the way. Okay, so if we talk, let's change topic. If for everyone it's okay. I mean, we have spent 1 hour speaking about that. So if you are a father, okay, and by the way, you are even a Kurdish person. Okay, let's suppose that your children, okay, want to, I don't know, buy cards, stuff like that, manga, anime, that kind of stuff. How can you, as a Jewish person, Jewish rabbi, by the way, okay, judge if something it's good from a Jewish perspective or not? For example, I'm gonna take Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm not sure you know what it is. It's like a game of cards, even an anime, okay, a Japanese cartoon, but it's full of stuff like from Egypt. How can you judge if something like this it's good for us? Because I'm specifically talking about that because there are Egyptians gods quoted and stuff like that. Okay, for us it touched us from
It's funny, because the job of a rabbi doesn't entail things like this, unfortunately. The one has to use common sense because every person's a mixed bag and every situation is different. The job of a rabbi is only to give over Jewish law. That's the only thing a rabbi is supposed to do under that title. The average rabbi today acts like a life coach, where they want you, like to like tell them who they can marry and if these like shoes match this dress. I would use common sense and look at the child. I mean, sometimes if you're too strict to a kid, I mean, you're going to make them not want to do anything religious if you're forbidding things because of the religion. So you have to, I mean, it depends on the kid. But this show is more about straight halakha and what Jews happen to do in terms of everyday life. I mean, I don't paskin those shilas,
Asher's saying he doesn't care.
No. My son plays, Roblox all day long. I mean, like, what am I going to tell him? Come on, man.
That's not good.
No, I know. What are we going to do? It's like, I mean, all his friends do also, like, and they're in Lubavitch.
The Chabad son?
Yeah.
You see, they're teaching him all sorts at Chabad school.
No, I mean, Chabad doesn't teach that, but people aren't as religious as they proclaim to be. I mean, not that being religious means that you can't play video games. I mean, I listen to secular music also. Yeah, there's no prohibition on all these things. The question is, to quote Paul, I mean, things may be permissible but not beneficial. So there's things that you're allowed to do that at the end of the day, heck, it's like with the idea that kosher is healthy. I mean, have you seen what Orthodox people eat? Right? I mean,
okay, you took the point. Okay.
Sorry, I just don't want to,
Okay, your point is like, okay, we can even make a venom kosher. It doesn't mean that it's gonna be healthy for you. Okay, yeah. Especially Chabad when it comes to eats. By the way, guys, they are insane. If you want to have diabetes, go eat with them every Shabbos.
All I'm gonna say is Ashkenazi food is so bad that
okay, you got it. In fact, I'm proud to be a Sephardic Jew.
Ashkenazi people have to show for food. Matzo ball soup. I mean, there should be a prohibition on this stuff.
Matzo ball soup's pretty good whenever you're
I've had it. It's awful.
What? Whose matzo ball soup did you have?
Yeah, no.
I mean, it was 4,000 years of civilization. I mean, at least the Sephardim have excellent food. The Yemenites have excellent food.
Okay. I'm not telling this, okay? The guy is telling this, okay? So it's not about me, okay, guys?
Shut up on Pesach or something. Like the wrong day to taste Jewish cuisine. But that being said, My daughter used to go to Beis Yaakov. So Beis Yaakov is like the Jewish. It's like a school, like a famous school for girls. And they would find us, like charge us money every time that she came to school with nail polish on. Right. And I'm like, what does that have to do with Judaism? Or like, sneelt, like the notion of like modesty. So it shows that sometimes people become a little, fanatical in behalf of religion.
You can argue it's not modest to wear nail polish.
I don't think it's not modest. I mean, it depends. Who sets the standards for modesty from that perspective? I don't think the Rambam mentions nail polish. That being said, in the time of Maimonides, women had to cover their hair, even young girls. So, like, I'm sure it's left up to local custom.
Do they hit you or flag you for like mascara or eyeliner?
Oh no! I mean, Jews surprisingly.
I know that's what's crazy. I'm about to throw down here. Go ahead, finish.
So when I was in Israel, I've heard many times that there are big rabbis that prohibited hitting your kids. So most Jews don't hit their kids. Unfortunately, by the way, because I'm for like a proper spanking.
Eyeliner.
No, because you mentioned like spanking. What'd you say?
No.
She said mascara, not spanking.
Asher, you just don't even listen.
Oh, I thought you said if the school is gonna like spank.
Like
Mascara, she said mascara.
Okay, well, okay. So.
He doesn't know what it is, Courtney. That's why.
No, I know mascara, right? It's part of your face. Right, so what Kiss wears. All right.
It's permissible for a man in Islam to put on mascara or eyeliner, or not mascara, eyeliner.
Man. Okay, besides religion, that is offensive to the men, like as such, Okay, like a guy, a couple of days ago told me, haven't you ever felt, the need to wear like woman stuff? I was like, no, not at all. Get out of here. You know what I mean? It's offensive as a man.
Yeah, I noticed you don't have a profile picture. You're there like
I love how sure he answered. No, not at all.
Not at all.
I've heard everything I need to hear. No,
like the Rocky Horror Picture Show right now. With no picture on there, you're talking. You fishnet stockings, but you have a keep on. Very nice. Right before Shabbos as well.
Man, the problem is that I have a broken webcam. I'm not kidding. I gotta fix this. By the way, if you wanna see me, you don't have any problem with that. You have my number.
Courtney, don't you think the rabbi would really suit Payas, like really good Payas?
I had. Just look at my videos. In Israel,
I think you should do it. If I was Jewish, I would definitely have Payas.
Yeah, once upon okay. By the way, your statement in Hebrew doesn't make any sense because peyot in Hebrew is the word for the sides of your head, your hair. They make it up. It's tradition. It's not what I do.
That's what I'm saying. I would definitely have payas.
So you are a more European side.
I'll tell you why people do this. By the way, this is why guys get long beards and wear long coats and have big hats and. Why do you think? Chicks. They do it for chicks. Everything a man does is for some sort of kavod, of like honor. When you see a guy look in such a way, what they're saying is like, judge me on how I look and not necessarily on how I believe, or like in what I happen to believe or how I act.
Not believe, Rabbi, not believe.
Or act, right? So I don't get it. I don't get when people who claim to do outreach, right, for people who are born Jewish or not, insist on wearing long coats and black hats when that's going to act as a deterrence to people coming to religion. That's when people put.
Why would it be a deterrence?
Oh, well, for you, it's not, because you want to have your little curls, right? But the average person that wants to look like, R. Kelly, or, I don't know, give me someone like Ryan Gosling, and still be Orthodox.
You're not going to be Ryan Gosling and Orthodox or R. Kelly. Did you say R. Kelly?
Yeah, you could. Can you imagine him with a yarmulke on?
Drip, drip, drip. I want to be on you. Anyways, here, describe yourself, Johnson. Let me see.
Well, let's.
You sound like a 6'5", You
You
know,
sound a little bit British, my dear.
oh,
6
right,
foot
like
5
Ali
in
G.
finance.
You're like Ali G. Booyakasha. No? He
You
described
know,
you.
Ali G was is one of my favorite characters, obviously, by Sacha Baron Cohen,
Right.
who initially called him I can't remember the name. It wasn't Ali. It was like Mohammed or Mahmoud, and then he got quite a lot of backlash because he was trying to do this, wayward Muslim guy, but then he got quite a lot of backlash, so he took that out of him and called him Ali. But it's one of my favorite characters. I think he's a genius.
Yeah, huh. So you're Moroccan,
What
right,
did you
John?
say? Sorry?
I'm sorry, can I jump in for a second?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Is that okay? Okay, sorry, I apologize. I don't want to get off topic, but I just had come up because I heard Johnson earlier saying, like, you can't believe in Messiah and follow Torah, but
No, you didn't say
honestly,
that.
I see more and more. Oh,
I
I
didn't
thought
say
you
that.
did. I apologize. I thought you did. My misunderstanding, because I see more and more Christians coming forward with acknowledging the importance of following Torah, and not every Christian believes that Jesus is Adonai. Not everyone they could still, like me, I believe he was the Messiah, but I don't believe that he was Adonai.
Are you Muslim?
No.
Because that's what Muslims
No.
believe.
There
She's
you
a
go.
Torah
No.
observant Christian,
Yeah.
a Gentile that
And-
came to Torah.
But that's what Muslims believe, right? You know that, right?
Well, no,
Right.
no, I've been down that path. No, Muslim belief is what they do with Yeshua. It's completely different. So yeah, no, and I don't
Is it?
believe in Muhammad. I don't believe in Muhammad. I don't believe I have to do every single thing Muhammad did. Like, I don't believe in a lot of their doctrine or their hadiths. So no.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
My faith is for Torah, being Torah observant, and trying to learn about it as much as I possibly can, and improve on my growth each day. I mean, that's my goal, right? So I appreciate Rabbi Asher, where he comes up and he's like letting you know you can follow Torah even if you believe Jesus is the Messiah. Yeshua is the Messiah. So I'm grateful for that. And I just wanted to thank him for doing this and teaching us each day as he comes up and does these lives.
Is she on YouTube or is
No.
this?
She's faith and trust.
כבוד הרב.
I don't know.
Here, guys, here, look, I want you to listen to this. I don't know, like, if the YouTube people will hear it because I'm running it off my computer, but this is what happens when you go up against Chabad, okay? Let's see if it plays. Hold on, someone send this to me. Listen.
That's true, right?
That's true.
אנחנו לא שומעים כלום, רב. כלום, שום דבר. Asher.
What are you doing? Inappropriate stuff.
I never said that. I never said that. I never said that.
Who is this guy?
Litvin. So that's Rabbi Litvin. You're from TikTok. I mean, telling everybody that I do inappropriate things to people in India, that I take money for conversions, that I say that secular Jewish people aren't Jewish, which I never said that.
Why don't you take this opportunity to dispel what's not true. And
So everything I just said.
So some of it is, how
Yeah,
these guys
no, I'm not ashamed of
get
it.
away with it is that they pepper in some truth with all of the lies.
Oh,
So
right.
why don't you take the opportunity to make it clear, if you so want?
For sure. So everything I just mentioned is not true. What is true?
You don't take money for conversions.
Right. We don't take money for conversions. I don't do anything weird in India. And if somebody knows of something, please bring the proof. Right. I mean, anyways, it's true that I was at the Capitol on that day in January. I was actually the vice president of this organization. That it is not a racist organization, although there are people who crept in who are racist, but we tried to kick them out many times. Right, like every group, I'm sure, like in Islam, you feel the same way of people misrepresenting their religion. But the group itself, the chairman was a black individual, so how could it be a racist organization? I am a Trump supporter. This guy dislikes Trump, and so that's what's true. But everything else, people make up because.
What about this issue about those women who are in the rave?
Yeah, I never said such a thing. They're fully Jewish. If you have a Jewish mother, you, according to Judaism, you're Jewish. Okay, you're Jewish.
But I know, but where did he get that from?
I have no idea. I mean, where do you get all that stuff from?
Such a specific lie.
Well, I mean, saying that I charge money is also a specific lie. You're saying that I do weird things in India is also pretty specific, right? And things.
I know, but you could make that up by saying, you go to India, so I just tack on that you do weird stuff, or that you do conversion, so I tack on that you charge for it. Those are easy lies, but to pluck something out of the air, that's evil.
Because I make a distinction between Jews who are religious and Jews who are not religious.
No, I know, but he picked it out of those specific women.
Oh, So that's why it's called demagoguery.
That's evil.
Yeah. So it's appealing to people's emotions, especially women. So just know that I'm not hiding these comments, but people say, people follow this individual when I want the proof. I mean, heck, if I'm harmful out there, put the actual proof, but it just can't be lip service. It just can't be stuff that, hearsay. And then, and that I'm fake Jewish. This guy's like in his 20s or 30s. I'm 46 years old. I've been doing this online since I was 20. Most people know who Meza is. Okay. And I started doing this when I was living in Israel, and I'm an Israeli citizen on top of that. So I fooled the state of Israel also, about being Jewish. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's not very easy to get validated by Israel as Jewish, because the average person can't move to Israel officially because there's a verification process. But just know, this is this Rabbi Litvin online who says these horrible things about me. I mean, I call him Rabbi. I don't care. I mean, that's his preferred pronoun. But all I want.
Okay, this is a good one.
All I want is to have a dialogue / debate with the guy and see what he knows. That's all I want. But just for those.
But I didn't hear anything. Who was this guy? You don't want to make names, right? Right?
No, I did. Litvin.
Okay. I didn't hear anything on the stream. There wasn't anything.
No, the problem is because you're on my computer and the audio was from my computer. It sort of cancels it out.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. By the way, I mean, yes, it's easy to send a war against you because they are thousands and you are alone. And they like to talk a lot. Why they don't got any proofs? By the way, I gotta thank you, not them, for many things that I've learned and stuff like that. So
guys, I know that what we talk about on this show, you're not gonna get anywhere else. Okay.
I confirm.
I would like for you to do a debate with Mizrahi. That would be such a.
Man, he tried. He doesn't want to.
Debate. He said no. I challenge Rabbi Yaron Rubin to debate. He said no. I challenge.
No. Okay, don't make that name. He's too high for your mouth to be, to pronounce that name.
Right. No, I love to dialogue.
Mizrahi is like he would do it if you gave him some money.
Oh wow.
That's me with Tovia. I'm fixing to.
Oh, Tovia! I love Tovia. Tovia is a different class.
No,
Different
Toby is a
class.
nice guy.
I know you guys hate Toby.
Sick him.
No, it's not true. It's not true. Okay, I mean, not everything he says I personally agree with him, but he's a nice guy.
If you're feeling slightly depressed or you need a laugh, you should listen to his stuff. I mean,
Yeah, no, he's
excellent.
charismatic. You remember Mizrahi's charismatic.
It's
Rabbi Lichtman is
excellent. His
charismatic.
stuff is excellent. I mean, he's so bombastic. He was comparing in his lecture yesterday. It was 3.5 hours. I listened to all 3.5 hours. He was comparing the secular Knesset members and saying that they were worse than the Ayatollahs in Iran in how they treat Jews. So I thought that was.
But his argument was good though. I listened to it also. His I mean, when you listen to his argument, he couldn't say he was wrong per se.
Yes, you could. I think you definitely could.
No, you couldn't. I mean, what based on what? I mean, some of the things they do is religiously destructive. There is no doubt about that.
Okay, fair enough.
So the issue I have with that is a double standard. People who are into outreach and all this stuff you could be the worst person who happens to be Jewish and they'll welcome you in and give you an aliyah, call you up to the Torah and everything. However, if it touches anything to do with Zionism, okay, or in any way resembles Christianity, they'll throw you under the bus. All the lovey-dovey stuff goes out the window.
You suffer a little bit from that, Rabbi.
The two sacred cows of Judaism today are Zionism and counter-missionary activities. Those are the two sacred.
I would say just purely Zionism, right? That's the one thing.
Well, because you're an anti-Zionist.
I've lost favor for you, Johnson. I've lost favor for you.
Why? Because of Tovia Singer?
Yeah, I can't believe.
No, I think he's excellent. I mean, he's very difficult to listen to because of his speech impediment, but otherwise, I think he's fantastic.
All right. You see?
No,
I mean, he gave you that much, Courtney. I mean, he gave you that much.
Speech impediment. No, that's just how most Ashkenazi Jews speak.
No,
It's not true. He wasn't like that before. And by the way, he's a really knowledgeable person. He's prepared.
What? No, that's so true, though. I'm not being like, that's stating the obvious isn't anti-Semitic, right?
Yeah, it is.
No, it's certainly not.
That is the other golden cow. Right now you can't say anything negative in most circles about Jews.
Yes,
Rightly or
yes.
wrongly.
But no, I really do want to know, why do you think he's, in a different category? Because there's lots of, like, Rabbi Bar Chaim, like, great rap. Like, that's someone worth listening to.
I like him. Yeah, I like. He's more difficult to listen to.
Guys,
Yeah.
to have a big audience in the social media realm, you have to be a bit of a showman, okay? And just that portion, being charismatic, does it for the vast majority of people. It's not about how much you know, how much you can defend. If you speak well, you make people laugh, okay? And you're not like a horrible, looking person, right? It'll win. I mean, this is why people run for presidents that look the way they do. People are on TV shows. In terms of brawn and pizzazz and showmanship, that trumps patience, kindness, knowledge. Yeah, it's not even.
Okay, but what does that have to do with why he listens to Singer?
Well, there aren't too many rabbis online. Okay,
Man, now you are liable for listening to him. You know that.
Let me tell you, Courtney, my honest opinion. Right, there is a lot of interdialogue between Muslims and Christians. There's a lot.
You already gave me the answer. I figured you would give.
Yeah.
Because you're looking for counters to Christianity.
No. So there's a lot between Muslims and Christians, but then the Jews, there's very few Jewish rabbis or groups that show up to these debates. And he's the first one that I saw that had any sort of debates. I enjoy the back and forth. So I've listened to all of the the Muslim Christian debates. Some of them are good, some of them are boring, but they're interesting in terms of or even the Christian debates. The Michael Licona with Bart Ehrman and David Wood, etc. All of these debates are very interesting to me, but there's very few Jews who partake in it. And he was one of the few, or one of the earliest that I encountered, but that's why I liked him, to be honest.
Yeah.
His style is bombastic, and he's quite rude about Christians. So obviously, if I was a Christian, I wouldn't like that. But he knows both books quite well. I think I don't think he knows them extremely well. And so that's why I like him. It's not about showmanship or anything else.
Guys, apologetics should run like the UFC or like boxing on TV with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
This idea that in order to be on top, you have to fight everyone on the bottom to get there, and you have to keep fighting to stay there. That's the only way apologetics should work in the real world. This idea that you can
why is it that you don't like him? I mean, obviously because put aside what he says about Christianity, but what is it about his style that you don't like?
He's dishonest.
Because you're a Christian. That's why.
No, he's dishonest.
No, he's
Why
not.
is he dishonest?
He tells the truth. He tells the truth about your book, and you don't like it, and you can't refute it, and that's why you say that, because you're a Christian. I mean, I get it. If I was a Christian, I'd hate him too.
Special enough to even be on TikTok. Chill out, y'all.
All right, Courtney.
Asher.
Courtney, here.
Asher.
Explain.
Asher doesn't believe in Christianity. I don't find Asher to be dishonest. He's an honest rabbi. You ask a question, he's going to
Define honest.
and then he's going to.
Because he gives you a platform.
I know it's hard. Just hold on, mute. And he gives his honest answer, and he says what Judaism actually believes, practices, teaches, and where it might be wrong. Okay, and where it might be right. That is not true of Rabbi Singer. So regardless of whether you think he would beat me in a debate, and I'd love for every single one of you on YouTube right now to blow up his email, phone calls on Sunday, telling him to accept the challenge to debate Courtney from biblical apologetics. And I will
You want to be humiliated online in front of
He would destroy you
in 2 minutes.
You'll meet your savior real quick in that debate.
Well, relax. I mean, there's no point. There's no point of insulting anyone like that.
That's just
Okay, so Courtney has like a whole library of debates and lectures, a lot more than Toby Singer, by the way. Okay, so I before saying that, grade her properly by watching other debates she's had. For sure, right now, he can't debate because he's like already like he has like dementia or something. Toby Singer today is not Toby Singer 30 years ago. Okay, so just use equal scales when you're saying that Courtney will lose a debate. I don't think Courtney would lose a debate.
I think she would lose because I don't agree with her religious position. I think the position is wrong. It's a misreading. That's what I personally think. That's why I think anybody could, in my opinion, defeat it.
Me. He's like, you don't like Singer because he doesn't agree with you. Yet I like Asher. Asher's fine. Asher doesn't agree with me. Asher and I, we go back and forth all the time. I can have a friendly conversation with Asher. It has nothing to do with liking.
Okay, if I tell you something. Most times that I heard you speaking here, you misrespected Asher, and he was too good towards you. You interrupted him. You answered for him.
I mean, Courtney doesn't interrupt people. I'm telling you, she's one of the.
That's not true. I've been on here many times.
I've been on here many times, and Courtney is always polite to Rabbi Asher. Always.
It feels to me like they're really good friends, actually.
I don't even know this.
Therein lies the problem.
She's always on your live, so it's that you guys get on really well. I've never seen her interrupt you or be rude. So come on.
No, I respect Asher as a person, as a man, and as a rabbi. Absolutely. And
You should get on your own Christian life.
Do what?
You should get on your own Christian life and leave the Judaism one alone.
No, don't do that. What are you doing, bro? This is like you're destroying the essence of the whole show.
We have Christians, Muslims, Jews. I mean, read the back of his thing. Can they see that?
No, they can't see. Well, I mean, they have it on like YouTube also. This is the only way we're going to grow, by talking to people who disagree with us. This is the basis of the show, but we have to be nice about it, right? You know, like if.
But to be fair, Rabbi, I think Courtney's going to get you before you get her, so you should be careful.
Well, she's younger than I am. I'm telling you, I'm getting older.
She's going to get you before you get her.
That's what it sounds like, though, almost sometimes.
No, man.
No, he would.
My life would be easier if I converted to Christianity. I'll tell you that. It's so much easier. Or Islam. If I become a Muslim, forget about it. You know.
So Johnson, why haven't you converted to Christianity?
I don't think it makes sense.
So
I don't think it's logical.
Okay, so what about like a messianic view of Christianity?
I don't think that. I think that Christianity is really difficult to believe, and I think you need a lot of faith. You know how the rabbi said that you don't really need faith to be a Jew, and I said to him, well, you need faith to be a Muslim. I think Christianity needs the most amount of faith. It needs the most amount of, not in a negative way, the most amount of blind faith. It's so difficult to square that circle. It's very difficult for me.
Flying donkeys are more believable.
Well, no, I don't. It's not. I'm not, I don't want to be rude or anything. It's just the Trinity is very difficult. Believing that, Christ is a man. And
You don't have to believe in the Trinity. You don't. Not all Christians are Trinitarians.
Fine, most Christians are Trinitarians. This is not the only thing, right? Believing that Christ is both God and man at the same time. All of these things. I also don't understand why the resurrection of Christ is a big deal. I mean, why is that important? I don't understand.
Oh, I'll tell you. For authority, right? Because he ascends to the right hand of the Father, and then
many other people resurrected, right? Many other people raised from the dead. Why is that important that he did?
Yeah, for atonement.
Other people were raised by somebody else. Jesus was raised on his own. That's a huge difference.
God raised him, didn't he? The Father raised him. He was raised by the Father.
There wasn't somebody physically there that said, "Arise, Jesus," versus somebody versus the other people.
Why is that important? So the importance isn't that he was raised, but he was raised by somebody who wasn't physically there. That's the important bit. You see how it's difficult.
There's other important things to it.
There's a lot more.
Hypostasis. Crazy explanations. 3 in 1, like an egg, like ice, like water, like steam. Nonsense.
It's not crazy. Christianity, I think, is it's a fantastic faith, and I think that the world. I think basically the reason that the UK and Europe is going to hell is because they've lost the church and they've lost Christianity.
That's what Richard Dawkins. You saw Richard Dawkins' statement when they interviewed him, and now he's saying that.
Richard Dawkins is a complete moron, and he's done more to destroy the social fabric of this country and of Western Europe than most people. Yep. He's evil.
But he's taking it back. Like his latest statement,
he tried. He was squirming, saying that he would rather see it be Christian than Muslim and what have you. Even though he said the opposite in the past, by the way.
Obviously,
he said
because he's mature.
The God of the Old Testament is the most evil God.
Oh, you're saying that because he said that he doesn't want
to be Islamic. I have a Deuteronomy question whenever I can get in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Rabbi, what did you say?
Are you saying that because his statements were reactionary against Islam?
No, he's always been anti-Islam. That's fine. What I said was he's been. Muslims don't. There's lots of people like Richard Dawkins. Muslims don't take him seriously. Christians do. They're impacted by him. Going to school in the UK and growing up in the UK, I can tell you that he had a fantastic effect on people who had a little bit of faith, who ended up having no faith because of people like him. Right. Christopher, Hitchens as well. Yeah, sure. So he had a tremendous impact on Christians in this country in a very negative way. I mean, it's almost ludicrous in the UK to become Christian, to be Christian now, to believe in a God.
So Christopher Hitchens is Jewish.
He found out he was Jewish later on. Yes.
Yeah, but his brother is actually very conservative.
His brother is Peter Hitchens is a Protestant who is very. I think he's a lot less intelligent, but he's a lot more astute than Christopher. Christopher was drunk on how intelligent he was and how much attention he got for his intelligence. Peter is a lot less intelligent, but he's a lot more astute. He's if you listen to him, he's fantastic.
How old are you, Johnson?
Well, why don't you guess, Rabbi? You've tried to put me in a picture many times now.
Hey, you're a leftist.
My witness. You've tried to say that I'm a leftist, an extreme leftist.
Let me see. You sound like Puerto Rican. Sorry, I was watching Carlito's Way yesterday. You guys seen Carlito's Way? It's a good movie. How old you are? I don't know. Just tell me. You're Moroccan, right?
What picture in your head is?
I'm sorry?
I want to know what picture you've painted. I can't ruin that before and tell you.
Well, you told me that you're Moroccan already. So I'm thinking of every character from Casablanca.
I didn't tell you I was Moroccan. You've forgotten again. Yeah.
No? Oh.
No.
Oh, my bad. Just tell me, man.
Are you sure it's not you that's got dementia? Not Rabbi.
Ouch. You see, Rabbi, she's gonna get you before you get her. She's too
wait.
smart.
Is your last name Johnson?
No.
Huh.
CJ from GTA San Andreas.
What about you, Courtney?
M stand for Muhammad.
A few times. What's the picture in your head?
I think you're probably fairly tall. I think you're about 30, mid-30s. Although sometimes when I hear you speak, I think, he kind of sounds young.
27,
The way that you speak sounds like you're much older. So mid-30s. Obviously, you're Muslim.
I was expecting Muslim, but I'll take Muslim definitely.
Yeah, Muslim. What else? Hold on. I can't think of anything else. Like no other picture in my mind. Why? No.
Yeah, pretty spot on everything so far. Yeah.
Well, Pakistani origin from the Midlands, maybe about 28, maybe.
All right.
No, unfortunately, I'm not 28. Unfortunately, yeah, I thought it was
Did,
right.
did I get anything right?
I'm not from the Midlands. I grew up in Liverpool.
Oh, okay, I was a bit far, a little bit too south. Okay, I would have got there originally, but you haven't really got a Scouse accent though.
I can put it on if you want.
All right, mate, from Liverpool.
Very good.
All right. Anyways, the Boycott had a question. Go ahead, Boycott.
So I've heard you say, I've heard other rabbis say, most important part of your book is the Torah. It's when God speaks to Moses. But whenever it comes to Messiah, there isn't anything except for maybe Deuteronomy. You can correct me. I can't remember if it's 18 or what it is. So can you go over that with me and compare that to what the books of the prophets say about Messiah and how none of them agree on what the Messiah is or will be, and they all have different opinions on what the Messiah will be.
I don't understand.
The rabbi doesn't know anything outside the Chumash.
Yeah. So in terms of like what I feel as authoritative, but most rabbis are not going to say what I say. Most rabbis, similar to Christians, will tell you that the Messiah is almost on every page. And if you read Rashi and many commentators, that's the sentiment. I think I'm the only one who has ever said that the notion of the Messiah is not literally in the Torah. It's not, because it's just not there.
Heretic.
Yeah. But it's just not there. That's the thing. I mean, I have to first tell the truth and then give my opinion. Okay, if it's not literally there, then how can I say that the notion of the Messiah comes from the Torah? In Judaism, we have this notion called an asmachta, that it's tied to the legal sector, that they'll create a rabbinic law and then they'll find a verse in the Torah to tie it to then say it's from the Torah. It doesn't work like that. If it's not literally there, I mean, it would really be quite odd to even have the notion of some sort of saving Messiah when the notion of heaven and hell is also not literally there either. So what's he saving you there for? Or the notion of kings being anointed, which is what, Mashach, to anoint is, like only priests are anointed in the Torah. So it's like forcing a round peg in a square hole. It's just not literally there. Foreshadowings, there could be foreshadowings from here, to the end of the Bible, but the idea that God's going to adjudicate you because you fail to acknowledge some foreshadowing, I don't worship that type of God who plays with riddles. Like, oh, you don't see what Rabbi Paul said is there, right? In Judaism, we have this idea of optional beliefs. For example, Chabad. Chabad believes that their Rebbe is the Messiah, or some of them do, but they're not going to treat you bad because you happen to disagree, right? I mean, they happen to believe it, and you don't. It's an optional belief. However, when a Christian sees something, at least that's taught through their apostles, if you happen to disagree with that, then you're out. Like you're out of the scope of traditional Christianity or whatever. While in Judaism is no. I mean, Judaism is like Torah is what unites you. Whether you see the Messiah here or there shouldn't apply. That being said, Maimonides would contradict everything I just said. Maimonides says that if you don't believe in the 13 principles of faith, you're basically not part of the Jewish people. And one of those principles is the idea of the Messiah. Now, he writes elsewhere that his notion of the Messiah is just essentially a king of Israel, right? The command to establish a king, that's in the Torah. It seems like it's more like of an allowance, like not that you have to have it. But the idea that someone should be allowed to kick you out of the community for ideas that don't even appear in the Torah seems like adding to the Torah. So I don't condemn people for believing in Jesus. I don't condemn people for not even wanting to believe in the Messiah, because it's just not in the Torah. So if the Torah doesn't separate you, why should I, on my personal conclusion, separate? I would like another rabbi to comment on that, and I've asked them many times, like many different rabbis, this question, and the only thing they could say is like, we see it like this, or we don't do that, or we don't do this. In other words, they sort of go back to wanting to be accepted and wanting to be liked and doing what everyone else does, instead of actually being honest and saying, you know what, I also don't see the Messiah in the Torah. It's not there. I don't see heaven in the Torah. I don't see hell in the Torah. I don't see Satan in the Torah. I don't see demons in the Torah, right? Everything in Judaism nowadays revolves around the idea of coronating some Messiah.
Do you want to maybe...
Rabbi, all those things you just said there, if you don't see them in the Torah, how do the Christians have all these things you just mentioned?
Oh, because Christianity is based off of rabbinic Judaism. That means not the legal portion, but folklore and legend, midrash and agadah. The Talmud is probably around 60 to 70% of legend. And these legends talk about demons, they talk about heaven, hell, they talk about the Messiah. And Christianity is essentially a Jewish movement, right?
But by that statement, then Christianity is nothing more than just fairy tale. Then essentially, what you just said, because it's based on fairy tale.
Anyways, on that note, guys, I'm gonna have to go. But yeah, like don't.
Every time I bring this up, you have to go.
I know. I'm sorry. All right, guys.
Shabbat shalom.
All right, good job. Let's take it easy.